Hey guys, welcome to episode 16 of the TLDR Podcast. A little bit all over the place today, as always, but Luke and I talked through a little bit of jet lag, some intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation, a little bit about what fills our cup up, and then touching on a little bit of the importance of sleep and how it's impacted us. So, as always, enjoy. Hey mate, happy Monday from the other side of the world, the other side of the wall. How you doing?
G'day. Doing well. Doing good. How are you?
Actually, I'm firing today, feeling really, really good for a Monday morning. Up early,
Nice.
trained or exercised. I guess it's training. I went for a run. It's a bit overcast here, and at my true home. So feeling good, feeling really good. What about you?
How do you find going back there 2.5 hours earlier?
It's real.
Is it hard?
Yeah, man. Like I had this discussion with someone the other day. Actually, it's like I reckon the shorter time difference jet lag is more impactful than a longer. Like if you're 8 to 10 hours, right? It's like, well, I should just be asleep now and I should just be awake now. Whereas for me, it's like I'm up at 4 instead of being up at 6:30. It's like I'm just wide awake, and it's just that small gradual when the sun comes up a little bit because of the there's no daylight savings here. It's actually like really only an hour and a half. So it's a slower progress. So I've been here a week, just short of a week. And I'm kind of like, yeah, I'm getting into it. But I've been going to bed at like, been in bed before 8 o'clock at night.
Perth time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A bit up
you
at
have
4.
to do that, I guess. That must be so tough. I was talking to someone this morning about they do night shift. They're a nurse. And night shift must be one of the worst things you can do to your body. Just that constant like back and forth between sleep patterns and it takes years off your life. Like regardless if you're getting, they get 1.2 times pay. That's not worth it. In my opinion. No way. Literally years off your life. Yeah, there's been studies on it for sure. 1.2 times pay.
That's wild.
Like that, I'm sure that's not that's the award for where she works, I guess. But
yeah. Well, I don't know, man. I know that like fireys, they do the 4 and 4. So they do 4 days, 4 nights, 4 off or something like that. No, that's not right. They do 4 on, 4 off, and it's 2 days, 2 nights. And so from the guys that I know over here that do that, it's as simple as, well, I work my day and then I sleep for as long as possible. And then I try to keep sleeping. Then I go into my night. So it's literally your MIA for 4 days, but then you get 4 days off. So they try and like quickly adjust, but they're just, brutal.
Same as cops, I think. I don't know what their roster is. Maybe like, I don't know, 5 and 2, something like that.
Yeah, okay.
5 days.
Like a normal person.
Off, 5 nights, 2 days off.
Weekend.
I don't know.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I don't know.
They work Monday to Friday, then have Saturday, Sunday off. It's really weird. Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's so uncommon in fitness, I guess.
Public service. Oh, yeah, in fitness. Yeah, true.
Yeah, I get, Saturday mornings and now Sundays with the new session, but Saturday mornings is like prime time at the gym and with footy now. But yeah, so why are you so up and about? Just like finally back into a routine over in Perth, or?
I think the first week always just jars me a little bit. Like it just throws me. I got in, I don't know, 8 o'clock on a Tuesday night, 8:30 Tuesday night, see my sister and her husband briefly because they pick me up. Then I come home and that's 8:30 Perth time. So that's 11 o'clock Adelaide time. And then you're like home, can't really wind down for a bit, go to sleep, wake up and you're up early and blah, blah, blah. So straight into it. I haven't really perfected it. So it is what it is. And just having a weekend that was pretty low key was quite nice. Just get in, clean the house, make the space really good. I'm a big Marie Kondo folder for those that don't know. I could potentially, if you're watching, I'll overlay some visuals of my drawers. But I went through and did that yesterday, and that just makes me so happy to have.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Marie Kondo, you never heard of it?
Nah.
Okay. Basically, she has this way of folding her clothes. Like, you know how most people who fold clothes, I'm not saying everyone folds clothes, but they'll like put their t-shirts like one on top of each other. Yeah, then you've got to flick through to try and find them because what about the bottom one? So she's got this way of folding them so they're like in this way, kind of like stack like files.
Sure.
And does it with pants and shorts and all sorts of stuff. And then color coordinated from like darks to lights. Look, I did that yesterday. That just makes me feel so good. That genuinely just makes me feel like, oh yeah, I'm at home. Everything's organized. Did a bit of that, saw the family quite a few times, and then just into a really good week ahead. Already started work and that sort of stuff this morning. Been for that run, like I said, put off one of my runs. We've got this one run that I have to do every week, and it's like a 10-minute warm up, and then it's like 800-meter intervals. Oof. But like flat out, and then the rest interval is actually just active recovery, so walking, so you can't stop, which is fine. But that's just the one I put off. I just don't enjoy it at all.
Fair enough.
And it's come from like 3 by 800s with 90 seconds rest, and it's gone all the way up to 5 by 800s, or it will get all the way up to 5 by 800s with 60 seconds rest. Ooh. So it goes, 90 seconds, 75 seconds, 60 seconds. So that's been a journey.
That's grim.
I did that this morning, but felt pretty good about it. Actually looked at my times and my recovery. My pace is actually quicker through the 4 by 800s this morning than it has been in the past. So that's good. Just feeling in a groove, I guess, feeling in a good groove, and being in my own space is always just nice to be, I guess.
What is do you maintain pretty good routines throughout the weekend? Well, you did all your folding yesterday, but what about nutrition and hydration and stuff? Are you pretty much consistent 7 days a week, or?
It wasn't this weekend because it kind of threw me, but yeah, I would say 90% of the time, absolutely. I'll wake up, I'll drink one of these before I have anything else. So I have like a liter of water before I have anything else. I then have 2 coffees. I then have my 3 scrambled eggs with a piece of fruit. It's pretty consistent. Nutritionally, I'm not good at having lunch on weekends for some reason. So I will admit my diet this weekend was not great. I was very lazy. Yesterday what was I watching? Maybe the footy? Can't remember what I was watching. And just couldn't be bothered. Maybe it was yesterday, or was it Saturday? Anyway, and I love sweet and salty. That's that's what gets me, right? So this is something I figured out years ago. And I really hope these don't fly off the shelves now that I've mentioned it to all our listeners, because it's a bit of it's a hack. It's a life hack. And it's a crunchy Cadbury Dairy Milk block, right? So dairy milk block with crunchy, the honeycomb flecks through it. On top, just one square on top of a singular Jats cracker. That is okay. Actually a game changer. And they've tried to recreate it and put Jats in chocolate before. They put like biscuits in chocolate, whatever. It's like, don't fuck with it. Like, it's actually unreal, to the point where I'm not gonna lie, the whole block goes by eating it that way in a sitting.
That's sick.
And it's just one and in. So that was lunch yesterday. So I'm not going to say no. I'm better than thou and holier than anyone else. I definitely have my indulgence. But no, I had good family dinner last night, and then straight on to the back on the straight and narrow this morning, out for my run, all that sort of stuff. So feeling really good.
That's why the splits were so much better.
That's all. Yeah,
fueled up on crunchies and
carbs. Yeah, absolutely.
What do you if you have an event or you're going for a long run or something? Do you carb load the day prior?
Thinking about this recently, actually, I had a chat with my coach about it the other week, and he's like, he has nutrition. I was like, oh look, I haven't tracked in a while.
Did you tell him about the crunchy Jats combo?
He's about to find out. And I just knew I was eating less because I want to get leaner so that I can run lighter. If you run lighter and you maintain your strength, then you'll be quicker. So I was eating less consciously, but I was eating to the point where I was just fatigued to run. So I wasn't fueling appropriately. So look, I got an 80-minute run tomorrow, and I'm probably going to have pasta for dinner tonight for sure. That's my way of kind of carb loading. But I think just in general, my nutrition's pretty on point when it comes to leading into this run. I'm feeling like I'm going to be really, really schmick. So I was listening to a podcast this morning or yesterday, and it was like being consistently inconsistent. So, you have the people like, which I'm 100% guilty of this, as proven by the excuses of the last little weekend, and the time travel, the flying. I did
uncovering some things.
I did watch a time travel movie on the weekend. Can you tell I'm on? I think I'm up to my like 4th coffee. And it was like, yeah, you can be consistent for a period of time, but then you become inconsistent. So, there's a difference between just being inconsistent all the time, being consistently inconsistent, being inconsistently consistent, and then being consistent. So like it's not just a case of, oh, well, I can do it for 6 weeks or 6 months or whatever it is, but like, what's the length of time that is your limit to sacrificing? And it isn't really a sacrifice if your goal is if you're intrinsically motivated enough for your goal. It's just that you choose something over something else. So that stuck with me. I heard it literally twice this morning. One was actually on a YouTube and one was on a podcast. Almost the exact same words from two completely different people. So I was like, wow, that's pretty cool.
I take that stuff pretty seriously. If you hear something, kind of consistently, then it's like, okay, there's something to this. I should apply it. Actually, something that you said to me a couple of weeks ago has kind of stuck with me. However you do anything is how you will do everything.
Yeah, I can't claim that, but yeah, that's a wicked one. I love it. How you do anything is how you do everything.
So good. It makes so much sense.
I heard that from Matty Fraser, my mate, which is just so true. It's, he's a perfectionist in every regard from, what I follow of him, which, maybe he's putting out his best version of himself each time, but it's so true. It's, if you're wondering why you're not succeeding in one area of your life, it's probably because you're lacking in another area, or you're half-assing something. So pick your X amount of things and do them all to your fullest. Easier said than done for sure, but yeah, it's a good measure of someone. How you do anything is how you do everything for sure.
So true. And it keeps me accountable as well. And when I have something like that, it just gets in my head. I can't not abide by it. So I've really been putting in extra effort into really everything that I've been doing just because of that. You like send it to me in a text. I can't remember the context of it, but yeah, appreciate it, man. Thanks.
No, that's good. Just throwing out these random quotes.
It's good. Actually, I've had some feedback recently of like little takeaways that I didn't think that people would get from the podcast. Is in like little things that we talk about, and it's just kind of like the flow of the conversation, and then you or I will say something. And I've had a few different people actually come up to me and say, that was such a good takeaway from this podcast. And it wasn't even our kind of main point that we were trying to make, which is really cool actually. So yeah, keep those quotes coming. Hopefully that's one as well, because that really, that really helped me.
Got them just on a wall behind the camera there, just reading them off. Pick which one I'm going to say today.
Would you ever write a book?
Oh, probably not. Haven't really thought about it, to be honest. Would you?
I don't know. I like the conversational side of things like this.
Yeah.
I don't know what I would write about. I think it's just an interesting question. And I guess the follow-up question would be, if you were to write one, what would it be about? It's kind of like if you were to have an apprentice. I remember getting asked this when I was doing my PT qualification. Yeah. And I think Fiji asked me this. Shout outs to Fiji, Darren Fidge. If you I think it was Fiji. If you had an apprentice in anything, what would you teach them? Like, what have you, in your mind, what have you mastered? And people were like, oh, I can make like the best scrambled eggs so consistently. It's like, that's gold. This is the recipe, and this is the time it has to take to cook, and this is the heat of the pan, and this is what goes with it, and these are the best condiments, and rah rah rah. And it's like, is there something like that you have where you're like, yeah, I've just got this thing nailed?
Oh, initially I went straight to a fiction story.
Oh, really? Yeah, yeah.
Well, like, okay. I think not initially. When you asked, like, what would I write? It's like, I remember when I was super young writing something similar along the lines of like a fantasy novel, and it was purely because I didn't read them that often.
Right.
I wanted to be exposed more to, like, how do you write fantasy and get lost in that sort of creative world? Or like, it's similar to, I find fantasy and sci-fi very similar in that regard, that it's, you read a sci-fi novel and none of the words make sense because it's just whatever that person has made up. Whereas you read like a crime novel and it's like, yeah, the guy stabbed the person and the guy's name was John and the person's name was Mary or something. Like, it all makes sense. You read sci-fi and it was like, it's common now, but what was a Jedi before Star Wars? It was just 4 letters put together. Yeah,
exactly.
What's Tatooine? It's like, it's just random. So that idea of putting something like that, pen to paper on that sort of stuff, is pretty. That's probably where my brain went straight away. What could I teach someone? I don't think I know anything to its fullest enough to write a book about it, to be honest, personally.
No Excel?
Oh God, no. No, man. I'm barely scratching the surface on Excel.
It could be like a book for beginners,
Well, funny you say that. Some of the guys at work are like, yeah, can we do like a PD on how to use Excel? So
There you go.
I'd probably do a little YouTube tutorial on or a video tutorial on something, but there's nothing that I reckon right now that I feel confident enough to write a book or, you know, aspire to write a book on. You? Scrambled eggs, was that person you?
Hey?
Was the scrambled eggs person you?
No, although could be. I think actually that'd be a fun little motivating thing. It's like, okay, I'm going to learn something about something. I'm going to learn a lot about something, so
Enough
I
to write
would
a book.
feel confident enough to be able to write a book on it.
That's cool.
And that would just like kind of keep you motivated in to do it. You know, maybe that's like a good little motivating thing. It's like, okay, in 12 months' time, you're writing a book on X. And it could be something relative to someone's job or something completely random. It could be, you know, it could be chefing for beginners, you know. So you really spend that 6 months or 12 months or whatever, really just diving into it and trying to learn as much as you can about it, rather than like, that's how I work the best, is if I chunk stuff. I really dive into stuff and spend hours a day researching it. And I've done that with heaps of different things, whether it be like skateboarding or cycling, or when I was younger, it was surfing, or, you know, just like really dive into stuff and watch as much YouTube about it as possible and learn everything about it and find out who's the best in the world at it and do all that. But it's very finite. It doesn't last very long. So maybe it's like a 12-month period where I've got that much time to learn as much as I can about something to, you know, potentially write a book about it. It'd be a pretty interesting little
interesting exercise. Yeah. I wonder what would keep you accountable to wanting to write that book. I think from your own timeline.
Exactly. Yeah. Probably mostly intrinsic, I would say, which is how I work. Probably 60% of the time anyway, is mostly intrinsic.
60% is not really the majority. You've just snuck over there.
Yeah, but I was thinking, dude, this, and everyone that's listening probably doesn't. Well, most people who are listening probably don't know this guy, but Tim has been crushing it in the gym lately. Yeah, and this dude,
big shout out.
Yeah, he has been crushing it, and he's looking really good, and he's so strong, and he's shifting all this good weight, and I'm like, fuck that, I'm not letting Tim beat me. So that's where the other like kind of 40, not because it's Tim, but because I'm so competitive.
What do you reckon he's close to? I love this because Tim will definitely be listening. So what will Magic Hands beat you at, you reckon? What's he close to beating you at?
He beat me at a few things, I think. But
give me two.
I think two things right now. He's pretty excellent on the ergs.
Okay.
He's pretty long. So row and ski. I don't know. We've got this test, and it's 3 minutes, and it's 20 cal ski, 20 cal bike, 20 cal row, AMRAP assault bike calories remaining time in 3 minutes. So it's 20 of each, and then max cows in the remaining time. And he got 16. So I'm going to get at least 25.
So my goal is 17.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
It's good, that friendly competitiveness. I reckon that's a big motivator for a lot of people. I was going to say men, but I think just in general, that's like, you know, competition is a big motivator. Whether it's a good motivator, I'm not sure, but it helps you prove to yourself what you can do more often than not, I would say.
Yeah, for sure. So that's where maybe not 40%, but that's where a big chunk of my extra intent comes from, is that
from Tim,
that competitiveness.
Just Tim.
Like on Saturday, just mainly Tim. Actually, on Saturday, I have another example of that. On Saturday, I'm involved at a couple of footy clubs, but I was doing the running for one of them, which I will for the full season. And one of the dudes just kind of like in passing said, "Oh yeah, our last runner would cover about 10 Ks." So I was like, fuck, I'm covering 10.1. So I'm like running extra messages and like doing extra laps and back and forth, and from the coach to the players and back. And
my reply to that would have been, guess he was inefficient then. I can get the same job done in 8. Like that's
that's true.
That's how competition.
Yeah, we are pretty different in that sense.
Yeah. Talk me through this intrinsic. You mentioned 60% of you is intrinsically motivated.
What do you mean?
Well, you just mentioned that, and then we went off on this Tim tangent. So,
Tim tangent. Was that like on purpose?
Tim tangent. It's not a tangent. It's a tangent, surely.
Okay. Yeah, mostly comes from internal. I think if it's something that I really want to achieve, I mean, that's kind of obvious. If it's something that I really want to achieve, then I'm like head down and get it done. And I'm back on this 50K run training again, and the running from this footy is kind of indirectly helping with that, just to get some volume in the legs. And yeah, I'm pretty OCD about that kind of stuff. I think like there's not much that I will let it get in the way of me achieving what I want to achieve. And for a while there, I was just like setting myself little fitness challenges, and I would have to complete them regardless. And they were mostly just like for completion. It wasn't for a time or anything like that. Um, and I was like, at one point, I was kind of I was scared to think about like fitness things because I would set myself this stupid challenge and I would have to do it, and it would just crush me. I remember doing like this. It was a 20K curved like manual treadmill run. It was the first time I'd ever used one, and I think it was every 2 minutes it was 15 kettlebell swings at 36 kilos or something like that.
Yeah.
And I remember just being in the top of this shed, like it was a second story in the top of this CrossFit gym that my mate owned, and I was up there for about 2.5 hours just like toiling at this workout, and just put myself, in like a hole. And I remember
What do you think? How do you determine if something's intrinsic? If you're intrinsically motivated by it, as an example, this 50K, like you've gone in and out of the motivation to set in place your training plan to accomplish it. So how can you determine whether, what are the categories or whatever it is that help you identify that you're motivated enough to accomplish something?
It's probably not so much the level of motivation, but it's how I'm motivated. If I'm motivated just by thinking, yep, I have to complete this thing, or I'm doing it because it makes me feel good, or I know it's going to help me achieve XYZ in the future, or if it's going to better me in some way, then that's more of an intrinsic motivation. But for me, if I have an external motivator or an extrinsic motivation, it'd be like mainly competition. I would say that's most of my extrinsic motivation. But also if it's like, going to make me a better athlete, which will then help me be better maybe at my job, or, be maybe more of like an inspiration, I guess. Not that I am at all, but help me to get along to that path of being a really, really good athlete. So people are like, wow, that's cool. I want to push better and be better. Because that's kind of the main difference, I think, for me, is if I'm setting myself up to do something like that, the outcome is not that important. It's more so just like get it done. Like this 50K, I don't really have a time. It's more so just to do, just to survive and get through it. Hence why I'm just like going to leave at 4 a.m. and just take my camel back and just go, just go and get it done. Whereas I think if I was more extrinsically motivated in stuff like that, I would book into an event and do it surrounded by other people, and, maybe have them kind of help me be pushed along, keeping up with certain people or making sure I beat others, or that's more of an extrinsic motivator. But for me, this 50K is just like literally I'm by myself. Like there's no event, there's no start line, there's no finish line. It's just start, and then I've got the map kind of tracked out, but otherwise, it's all completely just in my skull.
Yeah, I interpret that as like internal or external accountability. Like your ability to want to do something, your ability to be accountable to something is not reliant on someone being there or booking an event. Your ability to do it is just, well, I just got to wake up and do it. That I would identify that as accountability. My interpretation of intrinsic or extrinsic motivation, like competition can be an intrinsic motivator for sure. I don't want to lose, so I am motivated enough intrinsically, irrelevant of who the competition is, that is my motivator. I'd say an extrinsic motivation is, if I don't do this, this would happen.
I said the opposite.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah. So for me, if competition is the thing, for me, it's straight away I categorize that as extrinsic.
Competition can be extrinsic for sure. Absolutely. It's not a case of what component or what you're trying to accomplish. It's more about where the motivation comes from within a competition. So someone is intrinsically motivated massively to achieve success in AFL. Someone can also be extrinsically motivated massively to be successful at AFL.
I guess it's the processes, right? Leading up to that point. Like if someone's really, in my mind, and we can open this up for conversation, but in my mind, if someone's really intrinsically motivated to be great at AFL, they are doing all the extra stuff, like when the cameras aren't on, when there's no one there to hold them accountable.
With the outcome of it,
they're in the gym doing prehab stuff. They're doing extra conditioning work, or, at least hitting up the S&C coach for some extra running program or strength work or whatever. doing their own
Sure.
research, hydrating, going to bed on time, because the S&C coach isn't there to put you to bed, tuck you in, so there's like this
That was part of the job.
Yeah, well, that's part of my contract with the footy club. But
that's why I'm being flat out. Yeah.
Yeah, I got to get around to 50 dudes and suck them all over Adelaide. For me, that would be intrinsic. Whereas an extrinsic motivator would be like, they take that competition. I know I keep coming back to that, but that's maybe just kind of my main, thing for extrinsic motivation is like on the track, and we're doing 4 800s. Let's say hypothetically your running programs for footy, I'm winning that. When I'm recovering, I'm walking a little faster than the next guy, making sure I can, or maybe walking a little slower than the next guy to make sure I can win that next 800. It could be, like maybe more of a, like you're trying to get confirmation from people. Like you're putting all your workouts on Instagram and you're looking for clicks and likes and comments and engagement and stuff, like to get that kind of confirmation that you're doing something right. Maybe that's more of like an extrinsic motivator. That's just how I interpret it. I'm not sure what you think.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I say, I think there's a difference between extrinsic and intrinsic accountability. Like you're accountable to yourself, or you're accountable to someone else, or the motivation to accomplish something. Yeah, just agree to disagree.
Yeah, that's cool. As long as you're achieving stuff.
Oh, absolutely, and neither are wrong. I just think you get a lot closer to your goals when you're intrinsically motivated. I think we can both agree on that, irrespective of what our definition is.
Sure. That's
purely because like it's exactly purely because you're accountable to yourself. Like you don't need external validation, or you don't need, it's like, oh, I really need that person. I mean, that can help 100%. Like, a coach keeping you accountable, that doesn't mean you're not intrinsically motivated. That just means when the shit hits the fan, you just got a support network. But yeah, like what's like,
there's different levels of different levels of motivation too. Like if you're overweight, let's say, and you go to the doctor and the doctor goes, Tom, you're overweight, you need to lose some weight, go to the gym. Like how motivated are you to do that? Pretty not motivated, pretty unmotivated. So like if you're told to do something, way less level of motivation, or kind of like aspirations to do stuff. And again, it kind of comes back to whether you're extrinsically or intrinsically motivated, but generally you're told to do something, really low level of motivation. Then you're doing something based off of guilt. Let's say hypothetically, mum's told you to do the dishes before she gets home, and you hear her pulling in the driveway. So you run into the kitchen to do all the dishes really quickly because you're like, man, I don't want to, I don't want to have to deal with that. Or maybe you do it. Maybe you do the dishes because, mum's come home and she's had a really bad day. So you're like, oh, I'll do them, but like I'm not super stoked, but I'll do it because, mum's upset. And then doing something because or it's like part of your routine. So if you get up and you eat your 3 eggs and your liter of water a day, it's like, yep, that's part of my routine. It's pretty easy to do because you're pretty motivated to do it. It's part of your routine. It's part of your schedule or your religion, not in like the sense of Christianity or whatever, but more so just like kind of who you are. It's in your being. And then you have your intrinsic motivation, which is like the highest level of motivation, where it's the easiest to do stuff because it comes from within. You don't need any external help in order to help you achieve that thing. They're the kind of levels that I've like read about with extrinsic, the 3 different levels of extrinsic, and then the intrinsic motivation at the end there. And you're probably going to say the same thing as before. Different levels of accountability.
I don't know. Like your definition then, from what, correct me if I'm wrong, is that intrinsic motivation makes it an easy task. I would mean you're more motivated to do it. It doesn't make it an easy task.
No, true.
Yeah, like I would say absolutely. Like, I don't know, you're just because you really want to do something internally doesn't mean it's any easier or harder to do. And I would say I have intrinsic motivations about things I want to do for other people. Just because it's for someone else, it's not necessarily should be guilt or anything like that. Or like, say a doctor did come and tell you, I think there's a difference between a doctor coming to tell you, hey, Tom, I've put on an extra few kilos, I need you to lose some weight. I'd be like, oh, why? Would be my first question. And then you go, well, an increased chances of morbidity, mortality, you've got heart disease, or you could have diabetes or whatever, like you're increasing your risk of potentially getting these. So I'll leave that information with you. I think you should go to the gym and lose some weight. actually what a doctor would say is take these pills, but that's okay. We won't go down that path. A good person would say, how about you do some exercise? And then it's up to that person to choose whether they're like, cool, am I motivated enough based on what they say? Because like, oh, well, you know, my doctor said it's bad for my health, or fuck, I want to be around for my kids. Like I want to do this because I want longevity, not because someone told me.
That's the decision, right? Like, you've been told that information, then it's whether or not you're extrinsically or intrinsically motivated. Like if you're only purely extrinsically motivated, you're like, okay, doc said so.
But if you're not, and that'll help. Like doctors give you the information, but whether or not your motivation comes from that or your motivation comes from within is different for sure.
For sure. Yeah, because you might have that information. Like you or I could receive that information and go, okay, shit, yeah, they're probably right. I should do some extra exercise.
Yeah.
You know, reduce some of those processed carbs. But not everyone's like that. I think that's the biggest difference, is that it has come from an outside source. And then it's kind of up to you whether you are extrinsically or intrinsically motivated. Because I'm sure people just grind away having been told that they should do something without, you know, really high levels of motivation. Like that story of that chick that I told you about, when she did the same program for however, like 2 years or however long it was, because the PT said so. And there was no...
But I would also say she's intrinsically motivated to train.
Sure. Maybe it was just like a lack of...
It was like, well, I need to train and this is my thing. So I'm doing this. I'm taking their program for sure, but I'm doing this. One of the most consistent stories I've ever heard. Doesn't mean the program was shit house for sure, but like, or that, you know, the lack of progression in the program was bad. But yeah, she was super intrinsically motivated by the sounds of it to train every day.
To just go and do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Regardless if there was change or not in the program.
Yeah. Absolutely.
The same way it's every session. Yeah. So you said late last week that you wanted to talk about what fills your cup.
100%. I think it's go.
That's an interesting question. I think, and again, maybe like we've kind of just gone on this tangent about extrinsic and intrinsic motivation. I think it sounds like we're kind of different on that, how we're motivated, or at least our descriptions of the two are a bit different, or definitions of the two are a bit different. But are there things that you do every day, or is it like a weekly cycle, or is it once a month? How frequently are you refilling the cup?
I don't think it's a case of, for me, it's more of an emotional influence, I guess. Like it's not a case of it's a structured, all right, cool. Like the cup's getting low. Let's go and do the thing. Like it's been 3 weeks and like, yep. You know, it's not a scheduled thing. It's a case of, you know, life happens and you're going to get hit at the side, like from the side various times. And you're going to have those defaults that you need to reach out to that can help you fill that cup back up emotionally, physically. Physically in terms of like training ability, spiritually, whatever that is. Like, what do you need to do to go reset yourself and go, cool, I'm feeling a bit flat. I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed, exhausted. Who are the people I can reach out to just like, oh, that's right. No, it's all good. This is just part of life, or whatever that is. It's probably more knowing where you reach out to find those sources or what you reach into. As an example, like one of the things that I really enjoy doing that I probably put to the side for too long was reading. And just this ability to, like, we were away last weekend. Zoe and I went away for the long weekend over there. And I bought a book on Friday. It's a 900-page book, fiction. I haven't read fiction in a long time. I've got about 200 pages left. It's an absolute page turner. The whole weekend, I read about 400 pages in 2 days, the Saturday and the Sunday. Just spent like hour after hour just doing nothing and reading. And I haven't done that in so long. And that was just like, oh, I can do nothing. That makes me feel so much better. So like Saturday, I was like, oh, I can actually just sit and read for an hour. Like it just feels good to get that. And sometimes we don't really know where the next, you know, fill of the cup is going to come from. And sometimes we know, yeah, you know what, I've got to reach out to this person because I get a lot of energy from them. I get a lot of bounce ideas off them, and it could be a seeing them in person thing. It could be a phone call, a text message, whatever it is. But I think we as a society, based on my own experience and people that I speak to, we lack the ability to get vulnerable sometimes and go, I just need to just word vomit, or I just need to unload a bit and I don't want a response, or I do want a response, or I need a solution to a problem, or I've got a problem and I don't want a solution. And having those people in your corner, and more often than not, for a lot of people, it might be family or it might be your partner. But I think it's actually super important to have people outside that realm to reach out to and just go, hey, this is what's going on. And it sounds really like I wasn't in a dark place. It was just more like, hey, this like blah, blah, blah. And someone's just got that calming influence, like, oh yeah, like the shit's nowhere near the fan. It was just like you say, break it down, chunk it out, blah, blah, blah. And I found that to be, as soon as I kind of got over here, having those people, like all my people are here, like all my family, all my really close mates, close workmates, and just having that, there's a difference between a phone call and a in-person interaction. And I just had that realization of like, oh, it's been a minute. It's been a minute since I've been over. So yeah, that's probably what came into mind. I don't know, is that something that you feel that you do, or don't need to practice, or you've got those people around so you don't feel it as much?
I think, well, I'm definitely not a big talker, believe it or not.
He says.
Of emotions.
Oh.
So
everyone just took a pause there.
I refill my cup from kind of resetting my waypoint, I think, is maybe you get lost in the day-to-day kind of bullshit, where you're kind of like dealing with whether it's politics on Facebook or the potential doomed World War III, or, you kind of get lost in all of that noise. And I think that because I am motivated to achieve certain things, I think that if I get lost in that kind of stuff, the day-to-day kind of like interpersonal altercations or like turmoil or drama or whatever you want to call it, I think that you kind of lose sight of that end goal. And I think if I live in that state of like uncertainty, as in where I'm going and what I'm trying to achieve, I think if I live in that state for too long, I kind of lose sight of it, and I just need to reset. And that could be just a couple of days away from work, some quiet time, alone time, just to really think about what I want to get out of the next 6 to 12 months or 3 months or 3 weeks or 3 days or whatever the length of time is. Some days it's just like a day-to-day thing. Some days it's like, I can look way ahead in the future and think about what do I want to achieve in the next 5 years. So for me, it is, just confirming to myself that, I'm on the right path and what I'm doing is what I should be doing. Right. And the direction I'm going is the direction I should be going. I haven't really thought of any like strategies outside of that, but that seems to be the most effective one for me.
So kind of withdrawing from, this sounds dark, but it's not what I mean. Like withdrawing from society, taking some time and going, cool, let me just, where am I? Where did I think I was going? Where am I on that path? Okay, let's just reset.
Yeah, is that kind of what you mean? Like, you can kind of just see yourself going off the path a little bit, and maybe, I don't know, with the start of footy season, let's say, different routine. Yep. I'm now like, extra 4 nights of footy a week across the 2 teams, Saturday afternoons, lots of social events, lots of things that could potentially pull me off the rails away from what I want to do.
Yep.
And I think it's just important that you can look at that from kind of a bird's eye view and look at it objectively and think, what is this? Or ask yourself, what is this actually even serving me? Is this something that I should be doing? And if the answer is no, then I have no issues in kind of cutting it off. You know, I don't really drink. I don't really do any of that stuff. Like it doesn't serve me at all. I hate feeling hungover. I hate wasting days on being hungover and having an Uber Eats. Well, you don't have to, but I do. Uber Eats food in, and
the hangover checklist is so I've woken up, showered. Okay, cool. Panadol. Yeah, power out. Uber Eats.
Yeah, exactly. It'd be top 5 on the list, and more than once a day, probably. To be honest, like if I'm absolutely no good, then yeah. So hence why I feel like it doesn't serve me at all, and then it just pushes your entire week back, because I really desperately need that day at least of not a lot of communication, because my job is so highly, and you're the same probably, your job is at least the same, where you're just communicating in such massive volumes with so many different people, and I give a lot of energy to that, and that really drains me, and it kind of like takes from the cup. So for me, sure. I get my cup gets filled by just resetting, you know, and kind of like shutting down for a little while and just going internal for a while, because I have to be so external for my work. I don't know if you feel the same.
I have done when I was coaching a lot more, for sure. Like I get home from a day of coaching and I just wouldn't want to talk. Someone else tell me about your day. I have the odd day like that for sure, but not as much. I think more so for me, it's like an emotional fatigue, I guess, from a different side of the role that I'm currently in. Like investing so much into growth and development of a company, other individuals, keeping people accountable. What do other people need from me? How can I help them? How can I help? How can I help? How can I help you achieve your goals? What can I do for you? Is that working? Is it not working? Do I need to bring in a firm line? Then after that, it's just like, oh, what do I want to do? Like there's just so much, you know, looking external and external that I forget a little bit about number one. And sometimes that requires, like, you know, it takes over more part of your life. Absolutely. Because, you know, it's never a linear, it's never a 50-50 split. It just never is. But the ability to be able to just identify that, like you say, chunk down all the problems, having that person to bounce off, then coming back in and going, cool, that's right. You know, now what am I going to do this weekend? How can I prioritize myself? And it just is so much more prevalent in my mind when you just have those people to bounce ideas off, I guess. And I'm definitely becoming, I didn't used to be as much of a talker. I'd be quite withdrawn, but becoming more of someone can quite easily just speak on these topics and open up to the people in my circle and just go, yeah, this isn't working or this is working. I'm not perfect at it for sure, but yeah, that's probably where my brain goes, less about goals and outcomes and that sort of thing, more about the ability to look inward and focus on myself a little bit more than what I do, and prioritize myself and do things either alone or for me, or things that I want. Probably don't just afford myself that time to think on those things enough, because of my role and my background in, you know, we're in a service-based industry. So we look to serve, we look to develop others, we look to grow others. And you have those times of like fully developing yourself, growing, like, how can I be a better coach? How can I be a better leader? How can I be a better manager, be a better partner, be a better son, be a better brother? And then that's all for others. And then it's like, oh, what does Tom need? Like, and then you, like I say, you're just like, oh, that's right. Let's reach out, figure out what I enjoy as I stare at my golf clubs, figure out, and my runners, wherever they are around here somewhere, and just prioritize that. But then having that conversation with someone, really, as you can probably tell now, it's like you talk all these things into existence, and by speaking them, they make them so obvious. I'm just like, well, that's why. Like, you can, you know, you've been doing X, Y, and Z. Maybe just take a step back, or in the time that you have for yourself, communicate to those that are in your space and go, hey, I'm just going to do me for a little bit, and they won't mind. Like, but it's the ability to converse that, as opposed to just going and doing it and then going, what the heck? Personality change. Yeah.
I think I probably am that person that I talk to for myself. That sounds strange,
in the mirror.
I just feel like, and this is kind of coming off the back end of that, like, self-reflection chat that we had a few weeks ago. And I think that's so important to be able to do that, where you can literally check in on yourself and ask, like, how have I been going? Is this the direction that I should be going? Is this actually going to serve me and push me towards this end goal? And again, like, having the ability to say, no, it actually isn't, rather than just kind of sticking to it and hoping for the best, saying, no, this isn't actually serving me, and then cutting it off. If that's the answer, you know, maybe you should seek some advice from someone else. You shouldn't just cut off all your mates because you don't feel like they're serving you, because that's ridiculous. But at least having the ability to look inwards to be able to answer that for yourself. Not to say that you're not yielding those answers by yourself by talking to someone else about it, but I think just having that kind of, that in skull conversation in your own head, just like going through it and sorting it out. For me, that's been a massive help, with, you know, making sure that I'm on the right trajectory.
What about emotionally? Like, do you find that you have those times where you're just emotionally fatigued from investing so much in others, purely like, you know, like you say, you've been up since 4 o'clock or probably beforehand, get to the gym, looking to help others. It's just like in that coaching role, I definitely found that like, yeah, I not necessarily more so with withdrawn, but I would have times where I'm just like, I just don't want to talk anymore.
Yeah. No, definitely. Yeah. It's hard too, because then you feel like I feel like I have to kind of go over the top and really exert some effort. It's like service based. Like this 1 hour is the only hour this person is seeing of you.
Yeah,
They haven't
100%.
seen your 5 a.m. session, your 6 a.m. session, your 7 a.m. session. You know, it's now 9 o'clock and they're only seeing you for this 1 hour. Like you have to give them the best hour, you know, so it's kind of like you don't really have the opportunity. So you definitely feel like you don't want to, but you just kind of have to. And yeah, that's so exhausting because you're like scraping the last like little drops out of the bottom of the cup at that point where it's fully been poured out. And, you know, and yeah, so for me, like I'm like Ivana, my girlfriend, will laugh at this, but I'm pretty emotionless actually. And maybe that's like a defense mechanism. And I think I've just kind of learned the ability to be like hyper individualistic and not really having to rely on anyone for anything. So I think that's good in some ways and probably pretty bad in other ways. Good in the way that I can really just rely on myself and really chat to myself and check in and see where I'm at and fill the cup back up with just some alone time. Like I don't really rely on having to like talk to mum and dad or talk to Vans or like, yeah, those are all like obviously really nice, amazing things, but I don't really rely on it to recharge. You know, I like, we joke about it. Like I'm like a Bluetooth, you know, speaker, and I don't necessarily need to be like completely connected to be able to feel like the connection. Whereas Ivana is like, she's like a corded charger. You know, it needs to be like right there, like physical contact, like, you know, and people just kind of recharge in different ways, which is really interesting as well. For me, we could literally just sit on the other ends of the couch and just not talk to each other completely. And I feel completely stoked with that. And, but, you know, after a few hours of that, I'm like, oh, like that's better. But she's got nothing from that. If anything, it makes it worse because she's like, oh my God, he's not talking to me. You know, it just like exacerbates
that
it. So.
Classic meme of just like the husband and wife or the partners in the bed, and one's like, he's probably thinking about this and he's thinking about something else or something. Whatever. Yeah.
Oh, that is our relationship, man. Like
this leads me into the 5 love languages straight away, as I'm sure I think I've mentioned to you maybe briefly once before. That's just like quality time versus physical touch for sure.
Yeah, it's something I need to definitely look at and spend some more time on.
Yeah.
Do you want to expand on that just for people if they're
I'm going to butcher it a little bit maybe, but there's basically 5 love languages: quality time, physical touch, words of affirmation, gifts, and acts of service. And everyone gives and receives love in different ways. And this can be in friendships and everything, not just relationships. And as an example there, like you've identified, which is good because you guys can, you know, work together on that. But basically, you know, by the sounds of it, your love language would be quality time. Like you just enjoy being in the same room together, just spending time together, interacting or not interacting. It doesn't really matter. You just like being around that person. Whereas Vans might be more around physical touch. It's like, no, I want to be connected. I want to be held. I want to be, you know, that sort of stuff. So if you're thinking, this is where a lot of relationships can break down. It's like if you're thinking, well, just by being in the same room, like surely she's all good, we're fine, and she's thinking, what the heck's going on? Like I've, you know, barely spoken to me. Why isn't he holding my hand? If you don't communicate that, then, you know, you're just like, why is there this disconnect? Why are we disjointed? And sometimes you need to give love in a way that you may not receive love. So, you know, you might have a partner that really likes gifts. And it's like, I like acts of service. I don't really like gifts. So you need to like, cool, that's how that person feels loved. It's like, all right, go and buy them a new pack of golf balls, go and buy them whatever it is, something physical that they can, you know, hold love that way. And that's not wrong to feel that way. But for you to receive love, it might be a case of, I really like it when they mow the lawn and the lawn looks better for me to walk out to in the garden every morning. Or I really like it when, you know, the washing's done or the dishes are done. Like little things like that.
She's going to laugh at this.
It's so true though. Like there's like a quiz. It's very old school. I think it's early 90s, maybe even late 80s written. But but it's true. And we change over time. We might start as active service and we might change to words of affirmation. Like, oh, I just really need to know that I'm feeling good today and I'm looking good today. And I can do this hurdle that's coming up. I can jump it. And you just need someone to pump your tires sometimes. So, we do vary, and it's not just you're exclusively one. You might be more one or two of them than the other three. But yeah, no, it's so evident. It's evident in friendships as well. That's why friendships break down. It's like, oh, geez, never see this person ever, they never want to hang out. And they're probably like, I think we're pretty good friends because, I don't know, when we do catch up or we message all the time and you make me feel good when you message me or whatever that is, I don't really know. But it's in every form of a relationship. It works in dynamics in work and that sort of stuff. So, don't know how we got onto love languages, but that's the 5 love languages. Feel free to have a read. I can't remember the guy's name, but it's a book.
That's a tough one to analyze as well. Do you think you can just kind of think about someone and think, yeah, that's exactly how?
Oh yeah. And people will know straight away. It's like, oh, I'm definitely words of affirmation. I need my tires pumped. I just like being told I'm doing a good job.
Yeah.
I got
Is that you?
I think I'm active service. I really like things being done for me.
Sure.
It sounds weird when you say it like that. But
let's leave that one there. I think your parents are listening.
No, I think just I like having just like coming home, and I can't even think about it. Like if put it this way, if Zoe listens to this, if Zoe was to go out and fold the washing the way that I like the washing folded, I would just be like, oh my God.
Marie Kondo.
Yeah. Marie Kondo. But again, it wouldn't really matter. But that's just as an example. I would prefer that over holding my hand walking down the street, sort of thing. Whereas she would be like, hold my hand. Same with probably Barnes. She was like, I couldn't care less about the washing.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I like thinking about that, obviously about Varna, but my mates as well. And
yeah, 100%.
Yeah, it's so interesting that you're, you can just literally like work it out with different people. Yeah. And if you're not aware, like you don't know what you don't know. If you're not aware of it, I mean, naturally people would be maybe not thinking about it consciously, but they would definitely have an understanding of it, like in some way, but it definitely clears it all up when you think about it as 5 different categories. And it's like, yeah, that person is definitely that.
Or leans more that way. They might have a bit of this, but yeah, 100%. I can think about it. Colleagues at work. Oh yeah, that person probably needs a little bit more of this week, or just in general, or whatever it is. It's definitely interesting.
Okay, so we're 21st of March right now.
Yep.
Basically, a quarter of the way through the year.
Mm-hmm.
How's it been going so far? Are you on the right trajectory? Is this the path that you should be on right now?
So that's a loaded question for a man with a full bladder. I'm going to pause and we'll come back. And we're back.
Hello.
So I assume you're talking in relation to 12-month targets that we've set ourselves. Is that what you mean? Or how do you mean? How am I going?
Or maybe even in a smaller time frame than that. Mm-hmm. Just kind of like how you're feeling on the rough kind of path right now. Like, you're out bush, like you're just like trudging through thick like bushland right now, or you're on like a pretty clear path and you're just kind of cruising through and you're flying down easy street.
But in relation to what? Where am I going?
Career.
Oh yeah, I feel good. I feel like it's been a really, really interesting start to the year. Like pretty disjointed with Mr. McGowan, but we won't talk about him. Unfortunately, our election wasn't last weekend. That was essays, but really good. Like I think this first quarter of the year has been enlightening, learning a lot, finding out a lot, not just about myself, but about where the company's going and how we're situated for what's to come and what we're in over here, which is the first 4 weeks of COVID, kind of being in the community and that sort of stuff, seeing what I've learned and that sort of thing from the eastern states and trying to help the team manage through that. Feel pretty good, dude.
Nice.
How you doing?
Doing good. On the right trajectory. Happy to be doing this every week. Episode 16. Feels good. What's that? 4 months worth?
Yeah, it's been really good. I think one thing that I've learned from this or gained already from this is just the ability to network with amazing individuals in every space of people kind of our age, a little bit older, a little bit younger, and just learning. I think I had to catch up with someone that I'm hoping to get on the podcast in the next couple of weeks, and just sitting across from someone that is extremely passionate about an idea is just enlightening, because I'm a complete novice on those topics, and just being a novice again and again and again and again is just something that I enjoy. Like I'm doing professional development with the team for work this week. I reached out to someone I know, and we're going to be doing a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu class with Ryan.
Sick.
I've just got to get my piss, but it's like, sick. Put me in an uncomfortable position, see what I do, see how I react, see how I learn. So speaking
of folding clothes, he might fold your clothes with you.
Oh, bro, I'm gonna get snapped probably by a few of the staff. I know a couple of them have some experience in that realm, but just that sort of experience of just being a sponge again and just learning. Definitely had some time off from that mentality. And then just putting myself in through this training with the running for the half. I've already had some personal hurdles that just like, I don't want to do that, or that training sucks, or whatever it is, like, it's a bit cold this morning, or but I've booked and paid for the run, so I'm either, if I don't do the yards now, it's going to be only one outcome. So having that accountability there is really good. It's been a good first quarter, to be honest. I'm excited to be in Perth for 2 months nearly. Got one of my best mates' weddings coming up. It's really exciting. Just really ticking along, I guess, for the start of this year, and trying to continue to build some momentum.
Love it. That's so important. Well, here's to the next 3 quarters. I keep thinking for some reason that 3 is a third of 12, but it isn't. It's the next 3 quarters of the year.
I'll leave that alone. One thing I want to just recap on is one of the biggest things that I learned from our chat with Andy. And I'm learning from a lot of these conversations now that we can speak on quite a few of them, is the ability to be an opportunist, seeing something and not seeing the hurdle, like what Andy said last week, like ignorance is bliss. And I don't think it's ignorance always. I think it's opportunistic. A lot of people see an opportunity and go, how can I make this work? Not see an opportunity and go, what are the hurdles? Obviously that comes, simple things like, I want to do a run in winter. It's going to be cold. It's going to be wet. Some people are like, I want to do a run in winter. Geez, imagine how good that's going to feel once I've done it. Or just not being facetious, but Andy had to buy, what was it, 50 skipping ropes to start a business. And he's like, we'll just buy them. We'll figure it out. That sort of idea. It's not the first person that we've discussed or spoke on that's like had that attribute. And I think that's probably my biggest takeaway, I would say, from the start of this year, is putting yourself in an uncomfortable position and seeing how you can react and seeing what you can create from that. Because in comfort, obviously, nothing comes from comfort. So I do that through my training. I do that through my learning, but maybe less so in maybe other areas of my life. So let's get into a little bit more discomfort in maybe the coming 3 quarters and seeing what sort of gemstones can come from a little bit of pressure.
Yeah, I definitely live my life like that. Mostly. I think in other areas I could 60%. Definitely, maybe put myself in more uncomfortable for me positions, which could make other people feel more comfortable. That's a good takeaway. Yeah, Andy was a great man. He's a great man.
He was a great man.
It's like
touch and go in the last week.
He's a great man. That was a great chat. Did we want to plug next week?
Not yet. But one thing I do want to maybe finish up on is I heard this. Can't remember actually where I heard this, and we're going a little bit all over the place today, but it wouldn't be a podcast with the 2 of us if we didn't. And we started a little bit at the front end of the chat about jet lag and sleep and that sort of stuff, and I kind of want to bring it back to that. That by the time, how old am I this year? I think I'm 32 this year. By the time you're 33, on average, you would have slept for 11 years. 11 years straight. So you've been awake for 22 years. So think about, like, from year 11 years old is what, year 5, I think. That whole time from birth to year 5, you're asleep. So for two reasons I've thought about this recently. Number one, what are you doing with the other 2/3 of your life? But number 2, how important must sleep be?
True.
And so many people,
important.
Yeah, no, amazingly important. The how good you feel after a good night's sleep,
True.
and the
But do you
fact that
wish
we
you could
don't.
feel that good off of 2 hours? Like,
Well,
couldn't we
yeah,
be
but you
more efficient?
can't. So,
Yeah.
like, the
Dude,
body needs that.
you're talking to the biggest sleep advocate. When I I got robbed a few years ago, and for probably, I mean, I could talk about this for an hour, but for about 18 months I slept a broken 3 hours a night, I
Yeah.
reckon. And the physical and emotional detriment from that was
Huge.
unparalleled. It was like, man, unprecedented for me at least. Like,
I just think there's something to be said for efficient sleep, and absolutely. And what is that in our age bracket, fitness level, etc.? 7 to 9 hours, right?
Yep.
If you're an athlete, you might need more because you're
Sure.
putting your body through more physically to recover for longer. So absolutely, like, yeah, if you can get the same amount of stuff accomplished, I mean, if you can get that same regeneration accomplished in less time, for sure. Like, I'm one of the biggest advocates for efficiency, as most people will know.
Which is why I like kind of laughed when you.
No, I love sleep. Well, what am I going to do? I get not bored, but like, I want to be on. When I'm awake, I want to be on. So if I'm tired, just go to bed. That's why I go to bed at 7:30, 8 o'clock. There's no point in me staying awake and pushing through. If I can go, cool, I'll sleep at 8, wake up at 4. Great, I can be more on. I'd rather do that than stay up till midnight.
True.
Wake up at 8 a.m. and have that extra 4 hours be just shit use of time.
Yeah, it's so weird how we do that. We literally just like push through for the sake of like seeing 10
It's
o'clock
got to be
or
a
11
time.
o'clock.
Yeah.
It's like, what? Like, it's literally, it's detrimental. And like, what are you actually achieving in those extra hours? It makes no sense. And for someone that gets up so early, like 4 o'clock, it's very early. Like, man, if I can get in bed at 8 o'clock or 8:30, I'm getting to bed at 8:30. You know, yeah, biggest sleep fan right here, especially. And I think because having not had a very good sleep for almost probably 2 years, and even like probably up until like the last 12 months or so, from getting broken into while we were in bed, you know, now I'm like, oh my God, a good night's sleep is like this thing that I just cherish so much, you know.
How good is it?
Because I've seen the other side of it and how bad it is for you. But yeah, 100%.
Maybe on that note, we wrap up. Hopefully this didn't put anyone else to sleep. But if you did, hopefully it's for a solid 8 or 7 to 9 hours and you wake up feeling refreshed. But please don't be behind the wheel.
True.
Well, next week we will have a guest on. We're just finalising the details on that. I'm excited for who I've got in line, who we've got in line, sorry. But as always, keep bringing the feedback, guys. And Luke, I will speak to you next week.
Thanks, Tom. See you soon, man.